Proper residential networks and Wi-Fi are important because we get a lot of information through the internet these days. So if you have one of these, like a cable company combination modem router, then you're starting off on the wrong foot. These are a combination modem router, so any setting inside that router, if that device is removed, you've lost all of your settings. Do you have one of these? Maybe an old router. They're very innocuous looking. And if they were made at such a time where the speeds are not near what they are now, those speeds won't pass through the router. Other routers like this, small in form factor, may look fine, but they too are slow. Also, time capsules were great in their time. Definitely not great today. Do you have one of these possibly? An old network 10100 switch? Since 10100 can only go to 100 megabits per second, that limits your entire network to only 100 megabits per second, regardless if you're signing up for Gigabit service with your cable company. Also, they could look very similar to Gigabit switches when they're not, so keep in mind. So let's map a proper network. It all starts with the ISP, or the Internet Service Provider, and that service is driven to a modem, which we often call the WAN, the Wide Area Network. And we commonly use these ARRIS cable modems for gigabit speed. They've got a cable jack in the back and a network cable. So that network cable then connects to an enterprise router onto the WAN port. So the enterprise router basically behaves as a gateway to ensure all the traffic from the outside world moves in and out on your network safely. We often use the Arachnus 310 router. It's got all the ports that you'd ever possibly want, has a failover WAN in case for business use. It comes in handy to have a second internet. Then that router is connected to a managed network switch, and depending on the size of the network, you can have an 8-port, 16-port, 24-port, 48-port, depending on what your need is. So the various sizes are commensurate to the amount of ports that are required, and certainly you can have a number of switches in a number of locations coming off the main managed switch. Then from the managed switch, you have your various wired access points. And it's important that you use wired access points because the throughput is coming through the wire, not repeated from one access point to another. And these are very nice form factor access points that we normally use. These are the Arachnus, and they have a little adapter plate on there where you can mount it onto the ceiling. And there's also a recessed box that you can get to where they would fit flush into the ceiling or into the wall. So now we kind of have the map laid out. We want to also monitor these various devices, and what we use is Oversee, which is a cloud monitoring service. So we can keep up to speed as far as what your devices are doing and whether they're connected and whether we have throughput. So we've got an internet test graph here, and that internet test is available also on mobile. And also we have easy access to the client list of all the devices that are connected to the router and therefore on the network. Down from there, if we have Arachnus access points, we can see the signal strength, we can see what channel they're running on, whether it's 2.4 or 5. And as well, we have the list of devices. This is a large commercial system where there are a bunch of cameras and so forth on it. gives you the idea of how much and how comprehensive this can be. So let's drill down into Wi-Fi. And we're going to take an access point and break it out into the various frequencies. So we first start out with the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which is the first version of Wi-Fi. It's slower because it's older, but it also has a longer range because of its frequency. The newer frequency of 5.0 gives us better throughput, but the range is a little bit shorter. And recently, they've combined these two networks into a system called AC. So your devices, like your iPhone or your iPad, can discern whether it needs to be on the 2.4 or the 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to use OvrC, and we're going to log in remotely to one of these access points. And when I'm logged into it, I'm going to put in my password here. And once logged in, we're going to see the status page and the wireless page. And this is going to show basically where we sit on frequencies, so I can adjust accordingly. And down below in the networks tab where I can configure the new networks, if you look at this, I've created separate 5.0 and separate 2.4 networks for both the main and the guest. So if you were to then look at the actual device and see the available networks, if you go to your network tab, you'll see that I've created a 2.4, a 5 for each one, a house-wide standard that will maintain all of the networks aggregated in the AC environment. And also there's a guest network. So if you have people over and you don't particularly want them to have access to your entire network, they only have access to the internet. So here we are connected to the AC network. So another aspect of OvrC is that you can track devices by MAC address. So here's an exercise in how to locate that MAC address. If you go to Settings, and you have to be connected to the network, obviously. And if you go to General and About, that will show you the MAC address, the Wi-Fi MAC address down below. Email it to me, and once I have it, I can log into your OvrC account and filter out by manufacturer. This one would be Apple, and scroll down, and I will locate the MAC address, and it shows kind of a generic iPad.local. So I can go to the settings, edit the name, and actually rename it and call it Living Room iPad. And then hit that confirmation button. And now it's changed. So that change is registered across the network. So the router is going to see it as that name. And now that I know that it's there, I can actually reserve the IP address. Also, if we move down and look at all the wireless devices on the network, I can also see it there. Also, I can see that it's connected to a 2.4 network. So if someone calls me and says, hey, my so-and-so device is running a little bit slow, I can see that frequency and I can advise them to change and go specifically to the 5.0 network, which has just happened there. On Android, you can do the same thing. Just go to the settings, then go to Wi-Fi, then go to Advanced. Then after Advanced in the lower screen there, it will give you the Wi-Fi MAC address. So basically, we want to set up a proper network really to get faster speeds more consistently, which results in better audio video. And also your phones and your tablets can remain connected and we can see status. I hope you found this video informative.